Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're listening to the show. Welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar, with your hosts, myself, Rory Petre, and of course, Mark Broadhurst. It's been quite an exhausting weekend, actually, from everything that's been going on in the game this weekend. So, me and Mark got a lot to talk about with regards to the Bundesliga. Obviously, we'll be touching on the games and Matchday 29, obviously the importance of some of those games, especially in regards to the race for the top four and top six. But there's obviously been a lot going on with regards to the Super League, managerial merry-go-round, and some worrying COVID cases, which we'll kind of get onto it in due course. So obviously we'll just do the anagram first, just to get things rolling with Mark, and we'll swiftly go over to the actual results of the weekend, and then we'll dive straight into it, because I think we've got a lot to talk about this week. So over to you, Mark, to get the anagram on the go.
Absolutely, yes. And I think it was actually quite ironic, my anagram for last week, which obviously we'll start by recapping, which was indeed, it was Glamour's disc. But yeah, I mean, it was actually quite ironic, because as we were doing this show, as we were recording obviously on the Sunday night, the answer to this anagram was actually being fired after his team lost at home to Mainz. So yeah, I think usually we say that our anagram brings good luck to managers and players, but actually this time it gave a very, very bad luck. And yeah, it was indeed, it was Marcus Gisdol, obviously formerly of Cologne, who was fired, rather expectedly, let's be honest, after a very, very disappointing season, and which continued again, as we'll mention, into this week. So let's very quickly sum up this week's Mark's Mystery Anagram, which is, as you can see on the bottom of your screen, it's Sabra soon. So that's, if you're listening on the podcast, it's S-A-B-R-A, and the second word is soon, S-O-O-N. So that's Sabra soon is your anagram for week 29. So as Rory said, because we've got quite a lot to talk about aside from the fixtures this week, it's been a really eventful week in the Bundesliga. Let's just quickly sum up the results, and then we'll go on to the main talking points. So as you can see at the bottom of your screen, Friday night started out with a very dull 0-0 between Leipzig and Hoffenheim. Moving on to the Saturday afternoon games, there was another pretty dull 0-0 between Augsburg and Bielefeld. But then we had a 4-0 win for Gladbach over Frankfurt. Then another 4-0 for Freiburg over away specialist Schalke. And then we had a 2-1 win for Union Berlin at home to Stuttgart, which was an entertaining game, by the way. Then in the big game of the weekend, once again goes the way of the Bayern. As I predicted, it was a 3-2 win for Bayern in Wolfsburg. Then, the Cologne derby ended up in a 3-0 win for Leverkusen over FC Cologne. And then only one game on Sunday today, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, the reason why that was. It was a 4-1 win for Dortmund over off-form Werder Bremen. So let's go straight back over to Rory to introduce some of the big talking points of this week.
So obviously we're recording on a Sunday, as we always do the show, and it's around just gone 7 UK time as we're recording. And I was quite happily watching my beloved Man United when some news broke at half time around half 4. With regards to the news that the Super League that had been kind of flirted around a little bit, that there had been official agreement from the top 6 traditional clubs from within the Premier League in England, 3 clubs in Italy and 3 in Spain, I believe. And that potentially, even whilst the announcement could even be coming this evening whilst we're recording. So if it does, obviously we'll have to react to that in due course. But obviously, so the theory that there could be a kind of a split, a breakaway from the top teams of Europe's top, X amount of leagues. Obviously, from what we've heard so far, and from what I've read, Bayern have actually opposed to this, and they've said that they've not committed to it, which I think is a brilliant stance from both Bayern and hopefully the Bundesliga. Some of the bigger teams, I haven't heard from anything with regards to, say, a Dortmund or an RB potentially yet. So obviously that might have to come, but fingers crossed that our Bundesliga teams are not committing to this, because this is a very scary prospect for the game in general, for football as a game that we love. It's more and more, as the years go on, going towards this franchise business kind of case. Obviously, seeing things like the Champions League, they're wanting to expand that as we speak anyway, which was supposed to be happening on Monday, which obviously then been interrupted by this announcement. And it's just the pure greed of some of these club owners to try and break away the clubs from this, obviously the long-standing traditional format that football has always been. It is completely disgraceful, and it's really disturbing to see. I, for one, as a Man United fan, if I saw obviously, from what I understand so far, they've signed up to this potential breakaway, and it makes me sick to my stomach, to be honest, to see something like that happen. And I don't think I could ever follow something like that happening. So yeah, maybe I'll have to become a full-time Stuttgart fan if that's the case, because
become a Wigan fan, Rory,
or a Wigan fan maybe. But yeah, it's really disturbing. So obviously, from our kind of angle that we're doing the Bundesliga show, we're really hopeful that something like this then doesn't take top 3, 4, 5 teams away from the league and really kind of damages the game financially as well. Obviously, lots of clubs in the Bundesliga, as high up as the Bundesliga, are really struggling financially, and to have that kind of big chunk of money taken away from them if the Super League did come into being would be terrible for the game. So yeah, it's obviously a bit fresh right now, and I for one, as a football fan, I'm a bit worried about where the direction of the game is going. So I don't know what you think about it, Mark. Obviously, I know you're a Wigan fan, English from an English point of view. But what do you reckon to this? Do you think it's as big a joke as I do?
Yeah, absolutely. From a purist perspective, I'm disappointed, but at the same time, it was very much expected from where I'm standing. I think I mentioned to you before the show, Rory. I think at the end of the day, football now is an international market. You know what I mean? Especially European football is probably the biggest club sport there is. Do you know what I mean? In the whole world. I mean, people in America, in India, in China, in Australia, in Africa, South America, everyone is watching European football, you know. And I think, unfortunately, that means there's a hell of a lot of money to be made with it as well. And I think, as I said to you, Rory, at the end of the day, a lot of these fans that come from other countries, they don't have the same background as perhaps what like we do. And that's not disrespect to them at the end of the day. I mean, it's great to have a lot of international fans watching European football, but at the same time, the money men have seen, obviously, that there's money to be made. And a lot of these guys, they don't want to watch Man United v Burnley. As much as we love clubs like Burnley, traditional clubs, people in a lot of these countries, they don't want to watch those games. They want to watch Man United, Dortmund. They want to watch PSG, Barcelona. They want to watch Juventus versus Chelsea, you know. And they want to see that every week, not just 2 or 3 times a season in the latter stages of the Champions League. And at the end of the day, I'm totally against it, 100%. But from a business perspective, it does make sense. It is the immediate way to grow football. But yeah, from a purist perspective, it's absolutely terrible, I'll be honest with you. I think, I mean, a lot of the English football has, I don't know, over 100 years of history as a domestic league, you know. Obviously, the Bundesliga was formed a little bit later in the early 60s, but it still kind of existed for long, long before now. And I just think, yeah, it could be the beginning of the end. Sadly, I do hope that the Bundesliga teams hold off. Of course, I really do. I mean, but at the end of the day, should the other teams go, I fear it's just a matter of time, you know, because and I think the other problem is how kind of lucrative will a Premier League without the big 6 be, or a Bundesliga without the big 4 or 5? Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, it is worrying. There's no question. I mean, the money, even in the Premier League, plummet if the big 6 left. There's no question about that. Like, I mean, what you'd have like Leicester and Wolves challenging for the Premier League title, and it's just a lot of international fans don't want to see that. It's so it is worrying. I'm worried. I'll be honest with you. Yeah.
I agree, to be honest. It feels like an incredibly big day in terms of the history of the game, potentially, because certainly, so obviously I've seen a very passionate piece of post-match commentary from Gary Neville already from the Man United perspective of things, which I'm completely on board with. But so for the say, if the top six in England, obviously we're taking this as a premise because we know the traditional top six in England have signed up for this agreement, so we can't talk about a Bayern or a Dortmund or an RB. But if they get punished in theory of taking points, if the Premier League decides to take points away from them or fine them, that would only push them further away into the Super League. So that it kind of feels like there's almost no coming back from this in a way. I hope I'm wrong, but it seems like it could well be the start of the end of traditional football game that we know and love. So yeah, a very interesting one. Obviously, if anyone has any thoughts or comments on that, please pop it in the comments on the YouTube channel and let us know. If you think I'm wrong and you're all for it, let us know by all means. But yeah, for me, it feels like a very sad day indeed. Forgetting all that, then we'll move on to the football, and we'll go on to our featured four with Mark, who will introduce it, and we'll go over the games, and what we'll do is game by game as well. We'll kind of talk about the managerial merry-go-round that the Bundesliga has all of a sudden become, which is also a very interesting kind of spin-off that's happened this season. So yeah, Mark, do you want to kind of feed us into the first of the featured four?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's been a crazy week of sport without doubt. The UK has opened back up, which I'm jealous about, but yeah, the football has gone to another level of craziness, really. So let's start with the game of the weekend, which did prove it was billed to be the game of the weekend, and it turned out to be the game of the weekend as well, which was, of course, the Wolfsburg 2, Bayern 3. But I just want to start by focusing on what happened in the post-match interview. Actually was announced. There's been a lot of talk about this over the last weeks, over here in Germany, I think internationally as well, that all was not right behind the scenes at FC Bayern Munich. And after the game, Hansi Flick, the all-conquering Hansi Flick, did announce that he will be stepping down from his post at FC Bayern Munich in 5 games' time when the season ends. I mean, obviously, the kind of reaction to that is that the Bayern board are not happy at all with his announcement. They've declared that they're not happy, but it seems as though Hansi Flick has kind of been forced out more than anything, not to do with performance-wise, but to do with backroom kind of misdemeanors. I don't know. It was obviously Salihamidzic, the director of football, who was kind of the main culprit by the look of it with the disagreement. So obviously nobody knows who is in the wrong there. I mean, it could be Hansi Flick causing the problems. You never know, really. But Rory, what do you think about that? Obviously the end of Hansi Flick's excellent 20-month reign.
Shocked. Obviously the rumours were coming around, so I guess it kind of takes the sting out of it a little bit, because it felt like it had been coming for a good few weeks. Even, we were quite aware of it within the UK anyway. Those that follow, obviously, the Bundesliga. So yeah, by the sounds of it, he's on his way to take on the national job. But yeah, it's hard to see, because there's been an interesting mix of reaction to it. Some Bayern fans that I've seen kind of saying that they're not surprised that Hansi has left because of X, Y, and Z not being backed, especially, which is an interesting stance and viewpoint that they've taken. And obviously there is this kind of relationship with Salihamidzic, and kind of it came to a point where it was just a broken relationship and it couldn't be fixed. So Hansi has obviously kind of taken the bullet as well. So yeah, I mean, obviously the Bayern board are furious as well, not happy with the situation at all. So yeah, it's all up in the air. We've heard now rumours, not very strong rumours, but it's theorised that Julian Nagelsmann may then slip straight into the Bayern job, which again is something we'll have to talk about a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the post-match reaction, it's absolutely crazy, considering what that win had done for the season in terms of the title race, which almost completely kills the title race because of RB's draw, you would have thought that Bayern would have been in celebratory mood. But yeah, far from after that.
Yeah, I mean, as for the game itself, it was a pretty crazy match. I mean, obviously Bayern flying out of the blocks, but I mean, Mr. Fantastic, Mr. Reliable, making 2 mistakes. I mean, first of all from Musiala, who did really, really well to kind of rummage and find space, but he smashed it more or less straight at Casteels, really. I wouldn't say it was an easy save, but he should have been able to palm it wide, really. But yeah, he let it kind of squirm underneath his body for 1-0. Yeah, then for the second goal, it was an even bigger mistake, wasn't it? He kind of again, it seems to be a recurring theme this season with goalkeepers missing like a punch. And it just ended up kind of landing at the feet of the world's best agent striker, Choupo-Moting, who got another important goal this season, actually,
Yep.
I mean, his goal in midweek almost got Bayern through as well, and with the unfortunate away goals lost against Paris Saint-Germain. But yeah, I mean, he's turned out to be a decent replacement for Lewandowski after all. But yeah, then obviously after that, I think Wolfsburg were by far the better side. I mean, the first goal was a classic Wout Weghorst finish from an excellent assist from Schlager, who's been really, really good recently, the Austrian international. Then obviously again, Bayern hit straight back with a kind of looping header. I didn't quite know whether he really meant this one, to be honest, when I was watching it. But yeah, I mean, it's another goal for the excellent Musiala, who is becoming a really, really good player. It's just a pity that he's in that position where Bayern already have so many good players at the minute. And I think he's only really starting so many games because obviously Goretzka is injured. But definitely, I mean, he's a very, very young guy. He's 17? And I think he's got a very, very bright future ahead. He already looks like a top quality player at this age. So then obviously moving on into the second half, I mean, Wolfsburg get themselves back in it through a really, really nice goal again through Maximilian Philipp from just a finish from a nice cross from the fullback. And then I think the big moment really is when Roussillon, the international of I can't remember where he's the international of actually, but
he might be Dutch. Is he Dutch?
Yeah, is he Dutch? Okay, yeah, there you go.
Might be.
Yeah.
I might have made that.
Runs through on goal, and you're thinking, "Come on, lad, make it 3-3 and keep the title race going." But no, he screws it hopelessly wide. And Bayern hold on for a brilliant 3-2 win. But as you say, it wasn't the usual. This was pretty much the win that confirms the title. But I think the Bayern players knew, and the celebrations were quite subdued. I think it's because he knew that the ever-popular Hansi Flick was going to announce his departure at the end of the game. And yeah, I mean, it's despite the fact they are going to win the league now at 8 points clear again. 7 points clear again. Yeah. But they are going to... they're going to lose one of the most popular coaches they've had in a long time, to be honest. And it's, I think overall, it's probably not been quite the season that they were hoping for. But they get the win, 7 points clear with 5 games to go. They will see out the title, and it will be another one in the bag for them. So yeah, so let's swiftly move on. I mean, it was even more drama. I think it was Wednesday, Rory, that it was announced that obviously this game became even bigger due to the fact that the manager of Frankfurt, one of my manager of the season, really, Adi Hütter from Frankfurt, did announce on Wednesday that he was going to join the weekend's opponents, Borussia Mönchengladbach, from next season. So yeah, he's going to leave the Champions League chasing Frankfurt to join Europa League chasing Gladbach. What do you think about that one, Rory?
Don't understand it. I think it's a stupid move. I get the premise that Frankfurt perhaps don't usually find themselves in necessary. Well, they're always, they've been a good team in the last few years, but not necessarily always within the confines of the top 4 or the Champions League. So obviously it might be a money thing. There's obviously a potential project to take on at Gladbach that I understand with a very exciting looking squad. You have to say that because obviously they produced the goods on the weekend as well and showed what they can do. But yeah, I mean, it was a really interesting situation and kind of scenario thrown up because you've got Rosa, who's in charge of Gladbach, who's going to Dortmund, who he's trying to do a favour to beat Frankfurt, who then you've got Frankfurt trying to hold on to the top 4, top 3. whose manager is joining Gladbach at the end of the season, who's then thinking, I mean, what's his motivation in this game? So I have to say, I feel so sorry for Frankfurt in this situation. It's thrown them into a real terrible situation now with 5 games to go. I really hope they hold on and get top 4 and Silva and co fire them through and they can hold on to top 4. I think that would be huge for them. Sadly, if they don't, I fear for the makeup of their squad. That kind of the lure of Champions League football, whether it's one of the teams that do end up in the top 4 from the Bundesliga or from outside of the Bundesliga, may appeal to the likes of Silva or Kostic or Kamada or anyone like that. So yeah, they're certainly worrying in kind of supposed scenarios that we're looking at there. But with regards to the game, it was a very surprising one, actually. I mean, 1-0 from a very simple, corner. Ginter meets it at the near post, 1-0. Then there are chances for Jovic and Isanka hitting the bar before eventually the kind of killer blow happened in the second half, which another of our few keepers who we've praised most of the season in Kevin Trapp makes a bit of a howler from Hoffman's half volley, goes underneath his body inexplicably, and it's 2-0, and that's probably the game. It must be a bit of a curse, our 5-a-side teams, because obviously we did a bit of a Q&A on Thursday, and we picked Casteels and Trapp as the outstanding 2 keepers, and they've both had stinkers this weekend. So yeah, apologies to both keepers. We've obviously stitched you up a bit there. And then a quick third goal again from a corner. The rebound's poked in for 3-0, and that's game, set, and match. And then there's a late 4th goal from Hannes Wolf as well. So yeah, really good performance from Gladbach. Again, their season seems to have been springboarded by the win against Schalke. They've not lost since then in 4 games. Similar sort of things happen to Leverkusen, actually. So if you ever need your season to be rebooted, just play Schalke. Apologies to Schalke fans, but there seems to be a bit of a trend there. So yeah, important win for Gladbach, damaging defeat for Frankfurt, and it's now all up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, it is. You're right. It's 10 points from 4 games now for Gladbach. And this was a really good performance, actually. I mean, they were probably a little bit unlucky not to get a couple of penalties in there as well for handballs. I mean, for me, I would say both of them should have been given, really. And I'm someone who doesn't like a lot of handball penalties as well. But I think it was clear that both of them the player moved the hand towards the ball in both situations. But yeah, I mean, it was a very, very comfortable win. I think Frankfurt were pretty much abject, though. And it is a bit worrying. I'm not going to lie. This is worrying for Frankfurt now, because obviously they've got a game Tuesday night as well. And yeah, this is all of a sudden looking like a game they need to win now, because Dortmund is starting to look hot all of a sudden. They know their target now, and all of a sudden, we saw what happened to Gladbach as soon as Rosa announced his move to Dortmund. I mean, obviously they picked up a little bit now, ironically, but I think, hopefully, I really do hope Frankfurt can hold on for the fans' sake, because I mean they've been brilliant this season. It would be such a pity if an announcement like that would deny them top 4 after they've been so good. For me, they've been a lot better than Dortmund this season, typified with taking 4 points off Dortmund as well. And yeah, I mean, obviously you're wearing the shirt, Rory, today, but I'm sure you would agree that Wolfsburg and Frankfurt deserve top 4 for their efforts this season. I hope both of them can hang on, personally. Okay, so moving on to another 2 teams who've recently removed their managers, actually, in the Cologne derby between Leverkusen and Cologne. So yeah, I mean, it did end up in a 3-0 win for Leverkusen over who recently, I think, 2 weeks ago, got rid of Peter Bosch, and Köln obviously got rid of Gisdol last week after the defeat to Mainz. But yeah, I mean, this game, you look at the score and you see a 3-0 win for Leverkusen, but it was far from that, to be honest with you. I mean, like, Cologne had so many games. They had 58% possession. They hit the bar 3 times in the game as well. I think they were also a little bit unlucky not to get a penalty as well on Wolf as well. Marius Wolf was fouled in the area. The referee gave the penalty. This was at 1-0 to Leverkusen. Leverkusen actually got off to a good start. They scored a really good goal through Diaby with an excellent assist from Leon Bailey. But then, Cologne started to dominate the game for probably half an hour, 40 minutes, really. And they could have had a penalty. And obviously from the resulting free kick when the penalty wasn't given, Jonas Hector hammered a brilliant effort that hit the kind of underside of the bar. That was so unlucky not to get a goal. And I think Hector screwed a shot slightly wide at the start of the second half as well. And then I think Leverkusen's second goal was probably one of the strangest goals I've ever seen in football, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know if you saw this one, Rory, but I think it was literally like both teams gave away possession about 6 times straight back to each other. Then a long ball over the defence just led to Bailey giving an easy assist to Diaby. There was no defence at all from Cologne. I mean, it was just a really strange goal, that one. And then obviously the third goal from Bailey, which again was desperately poor defence from Cologne. Their defence just seems to have fallen apart, doesn't it, Rory, in recent weeks?
Yeah, it's gone bad at the wrong time, hasn't it, really, for Cologne in many aspects as well. They haven't obviously... They have looked dangerous in games, as you mentioned. There's certainly a few what ifs and buts that that could have happened. Obviously, if they get themselves level, but then obviously Leverkusen managed to get down the other end and get a crucial second goal to in effect kill the game. Obviously, not if you don't take your chances, especially at the kind of sticky end of the season when you need to get points, then you are going to be punished and you are going to lose games more often than not. Obviously, Jonas Hector, the captain's had a good few chances in quite a lot of their games actually lately. Has been very unlucky as well, to be fair to him. So unfortunately, even he hasn't been able to do much for the club with regards to their results. They're looking a bit rough now in terms of their survival chances. Obviously, Bielefeld have been able to pick up points here and there. Crucial win, obviously, against Freiburg as well, which they earned. So, obviously, still only 3 points off Hertha, but again, Hertha still have that game in hand, and obviously, we'll talk about that game in due course. That obviously didn't take place. So, it's looking a bit grim for Cologne right now. Leverkusen have been again rejuvenated. And have picked up some important points since obviously they kind of kick-started themselves against Schalke a few weeks ago, and now are looking a lot more connected. 2 points off Dortmund, might even try and throw in a shout to even themselves push for top 4, and have a bit of separation away from Gladbach, who are in 7th place. So they'll be pleased with that. Bailey and Diaby are incredibly important to the way the Leverkusen play. Pace, relentless attacking, being ambitious, getting at your defenders, a really exciting way of playing. And it's good to see Leverkusen playing like that again. Important win for Leverkusen. Not looking great for Cologne.
Absolutely. And then over to our third battering of the OTB's featured 4 this week was indeed Sunday's only game between Dortmund. I think it must be the only time Dortmund I can ever remember them playing on a Sunday this week, actually. They don't play many Sunday games, Dortmund, do they? But it was a very, very good Sunday for them, beating faltering Werder Bremen now, aren't they? This is back-to-back 4-1 defeats to them, admittedly against Leipzig and Dortmund now, but they're definitely going to be looking over their shoulders, aren't they? That's for sure. I mean, they're on poor form. You saw during the game, Kohlfeldt, the Werder manager, was really starting to look very stressed on the touchline, You were starting to see kind of visions of last season again, I think, all of a sudden. I think at the minute, they'll still probably be relatively comfortable. They've got a big game against Mainz coming on Wednesday, which is going to be huge now, because if they lose that, then for me, they really are in a relegation battle. Probably a draw might be satisfactory, I would say, from that game. But let's focus on this match. I mean, Rory, did you catch much of this one?
I did, actually. I managed to see a decent amount of this, and Dortmund looked quite good, to be fair. Obviously, some nice build-up play between the likes of Reina and Haaland and Royce. They were looking quite ominous. Haaland obviously got himself 2. almost got himself a hat trick. So obviously back in some fine Festival and scoring form. They're trying to be a lot quicker around the box, I thought, and sometimes their build-up plays a bit to try and score the perfect goal on occasions, and they were getting shots off a bit earlier, really testing the keeper in Pavlenka, and I think they got their rewards for it. Obviously, the game was capped off with a fourth goal in the end by Hummels, although I think it might have come off Gebri Selassie at the end, but Hummels still, chipping in with goals all the time. Really impressive goal scoring record this season, and in general, Hummels does have for what he lacks in terms of pace and sometimes a bit defensively frail. He has added a lot of important goals for Dortmund this season. So right now, obviously, as we look at it from a Borussia Dortmund point of view, they're 4 points off fourth place with 5 to go, starting to pick up form and bit of positivity around the club. Obviously, they made a fine account of themselves in the Champions League. I thought a valiant attempt at trying to get past City. So they would have taken confidence from that. I think Bellingham is playing some exceptional football now. For a lad his age, I think he's an unbelievable specimen of a player. So things are looking good from that point of view for Dortmund. So and they'll probably only start to get players back soon now. See, Sancho might be back playing soon. I'm not entirely sure what the extent of his injury is, but if they get him back soon as well, then they're going to be looking good, and they'll be charging towards the top four. And Werder from the way I look at it, obviously Hertha's game didn't happen this weekend. If Hertha had won, they'd be 1 point behind them, and Hertha are in 16th place in that relegation playoff place. So I think Werder are in a relegation battle again. I don't think there's any escaping that for them. So they have to probably win at least 2 of their last 5, maybe more, probably 3, I'd guess. So it starts on Wednesday with that crucial game. So a lot on the line for Werder, a lot on the line for Dortmund.
Yeah, I mean, the game Wednesday really is massive, isn't it? I mean, obviously with Mainz getting the extra break, then they're really going to fancy that, I think, Mainz. And yeah, I mean, you don't want to be the side that are dropping down, do you, in these situations? You want to be the side like Mainz that are climbing up. I mean, they were dead and buried a month or 2 ago, and now they look the side that are more likely to stay up, perhaps, than Werder. So that's going to be a really interesting game Wednesday night. Okay, so that brings to an end our featured 4. So let's just quickly sum up the other 4 games, and then we've got another slight talking point to mention as well at the end of the show. So yeah, I mean, let's start with, for me, what I thought was a really entertaining game, Union 2, Stuttgart 1. I mean, I mentioned that this game could be a really good match, actually, and it didn't disappoint at all. I mean, I've got to say, Christopher Trimmel was just outstanding. 2 brilliant assists. We've mentioned him a lot before. He is the assist king. I think he's now on about 16 or 17 assists since the start of last season, which is just outstanding, really, for a side like Union Berlin. He just puts in those crosses, doesn't he? I mean, but I've also got to say that the overall performance from Union was one of the best of the season for me from them. I mean, the goals that they scored, obviously the brilliant, the header for the first goal from the Trimmel assist. And then, the second goal, which was equally nice. I mean, a brilliant Trimmel cross right across the front and then tucked in at the far post. I think, obviously, Stuttgart also scored a nice goal of their own as well through Forster's first goal of the season. And then, Kaladzic was a really, really nice piece of play there to kind of set him up. But I mean, it was an excellent game, this one. It was 2 sides that have been brilliant all season for me. They both overachieved. Obviously, Union now look more likely to push for that 6th, 7th place after the win over Stuttgart. But I mean, what did you make of Union in this game, Rory? Were you impressed with them?
Yeah, exactly what you expect from Union. Thought they played some good stuff, looked a threat from their set pieces and from those kind of crosses and those dangerous situations that they're able to make happen. So a thoroughly well-deserved win, which I thought they would just about nick. So obviously it keeps their top 6 dreams alive. Obviously, when we were talking to Michael last week with regard to this third European competition, the Europa Conference League, I think it's called. So a 7th place might be good enough for a group stage draw in that competition. I mean, who knows what's going to be happening next season with regards to what we've been talking about earlier on in the show, whether that throws spanners into the works of this Europa Conference League if it does happen. But yeah, obviously Union have had a great season, as has Stuttgart. So it was a good game between two good teams, and I hope they both finish the season strongly.
Yeah, the irony is, just another added point to that, is that Union actually dropped a place after that result as well, incredibly, which is a little bit unlucky after such a good performance. But obviously Gladbach's win, they were on level points, and Gladbach, due to their 4-0 win, overtook them on goals scored, actually. Yeah, so it's not often you win and drop a place, but that did happen to Union this week. But yeah, another brilliant result for them. So yeah, obviously another big result. I mean, who can really say it's a surprise? We said teams need to kickstart the season against Schalke, and it happened to another team this weekend, which was Freiburg. We were just starting to say that they were hitting the kind of on the beach kind of stage, really, weren't they, after a poor performance against Bielefeld the week before. But yeah, I mean, they really hit back their attacking stride in this game, didn't they, with a very, very easy 4-0 win, Rory.
Yeah, very comfortable performance, pretty much in control from the off. Santa Maria obviously was able to provide an early assist for Holler to get them off the mark, and they went from there. Obviously, Salai was able to convert from the penalty spot when Huntelaar ironically fouled him for the penalty. Not quite what you want from your supposed star striker who's come back in with a bit of kind of hype around him. So that's unfortunate for him. 2-0 at half-time, game effectively done. And then it ended up being a double, I think, from Günther to make it 3 and 4. I think two efforts actually from long range. Or relatively long range anyway. So yeah, 4-0, very comfortable win. That might give them a bit of a springboard, Freiburg, to push again. But I think they're a little bit too far adrift of certainly of 6th. But they'll want to finish as high as they can do.
Yeah, a top half finish would be an underrated achievement for them, that's for sure. I mean, it'd be really, really great. And they've been entertaining to watch. You can't ask any more from Freiburg this season. Okay, so let's just quickly touch over two pretty dull 0-0 draws. I mean, obviously the bigger one of the two was probably the Leipzig 0, Hoffenheim 0. I mean, obviously the big talking point in this one was Yusuf Poulsen's 97th minute disallowed goal for a foul. I mean, some would say, yeah, I mean, it was a bit harsh in some ways, but I to be honest, I don't think Leipzig deserved to win this game all in all. They didn't create enough. They didn't do enough. I mean, yeah, you could say that they kind of earned the luck through the late Poulsen goal, but do you think they deserved that one, Rory, or do you think a draw was a fair result?
They huffed and they puffed, I guess, but they didn't quite seem to get into RB kind of, gear 3 or 4, and Hoffenheim were able, quite surprisingly actually, given their defensive frailties this season, to hold on for a creditable 0-0 draw. As you said, I think it was a VAR decision for handball, wasn't it? Or you mentioned a foul, but yeah. So obviously that's a big talking point. But I guess maybe they shouldn't have left it too as late as they did to try and get that goal. Obviously they were trying throughout the game, but I think Hoffenheim started quite well. So RB didn't have that much momentum. Started the second half better, came out with a bit more enthusiasm, a bit more pressing, which RB are usually quite good at. So they did employ that, but yeah, it wasn't enough. And I'm afraid, obviously, as you were going to allude to, RB have somewhat bottled it again. So bad result for RB. Not a good weekend for them.
Yeah, I mean, this was a great chance as well, obviously, with 5 points. They could have dropped the lead to 2 points, obviously, with Bayern going to Wolfsburg on the Saturday. So, I mean, for me, this is massive in football. These moments are what win your titles. You've got to apply the pressure, but they didn't apply the pressure, and that's probably what allowed Bayern to get the win on the Saturday, So it's disappointing, but at the end of the day, Yeah, they're going to get second place in the league, which is still a decent effort. They've kept the title relatively close for most of the season, so it's still been a good year for Leipzig, without doubt, who continue to grow as a football club. Okay, and obviously the final game was a game that we didn't predict, really. Probably the two most defensive sides in the Bundesliga, aren't they? I think both me and you, Rory, tipped a draw in this game, and it did end up being a draw, and a pretty drab draw at that. But to be honest, I've got to be honest, I think both sides will be relatively happy with the point there. I mean, for me, that point makes it impossible for Augsburg to go down now on 33 points with a decent goal difference. And also it lifts Bielefeld up and out of that bottom three place, doesn't it, above Hertha, who we'll mention in a minute didn't play this weekend. So yeah, I mean, would you agree with that, Rory, that both sides will be quite happy with the point there?
Yeah, useful point for both teams. I think Bielefeld probably just slightly edged it on the kind of how big their potential chances were. I think it was Volksammer had a couple of, well, he had a one-on-one opportunity, I think it was, or certainly a very clean opportunity when he was played through by Klose. That was about it. So yeah, important point for both. Pretty much keeps Augsburg safe, and Bielefeld obviously helps them jump into 15th outside of that relegation playoff place for now. But obviously as a result of potentially Hertha Berlin not playing. So obviously, Mark, do you want to kind of talk about that a little bit? You might know a little bit more, obviously being in the country and living it right now, of course.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some of you might be wondering why one of the biggest games, I think it was the second biggest build game of the week, wasn't it, really, after obviously the Wolfsburg v Bayern game, where you might be wondering why Mainz v Hertha Berlin didn't take place. And that was indeed, it was the news broke on Saturday morning that Hertha Berlin had a number of basically a COVID outbreak within the squad. And the problem is really that the big talking point there is the fact that they now have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And the biggest worry is that they could potentially miss up to 3 games as well, because obviously with midweek fixtures coming for week 30 this week, it's happened at exactly the wrong time, you know. So we could be in a situation in 2 weeks' time where Hertha Berlin have played 3 games less than the relegation rivals. And I mean, obviously the season has to finish on the 16th of May, which is the current date that it's scheduled to be finished. So that means that Hertha are going to have to play the last 3 midweeks of the season. And we all know what happens to Bundesliga teams when they have to play 2 games a week. You know, they roll out the under-21s, basically. It's yeah, so it's a big worry. I know that I think Hertha are in the process of trying to get it reduced at the moment, the quarantine, because, I mean, obviously there's massive money relying on this as well. And they genuinely fear now that if they do have to play those extra games like back to back, I mean, they're not going to be fresh going into already a tired time in the season, you know. So what do you think of that, Rory? Do you think it could affect Hertha's chances of staying up, or do you think they'll still just have enough there?
I mean, it's certainly damaging. It may, if they were in about 14th place and they were still just hovering above the relegation playoff place, I might have a slightly different opinion on it. But the fact that they are actually in a, you know, obviously they don't get relegated for coming 16th, but if you can't play a few games and then, you know, out of nowhere, say Cologne pick up a win and a draw, then you're actually in 17th place as a result. When you next come into the field, Hertha Berlin players will be cacking in their pants, essentially. Like they'll be nervous. They won't have any confidence. And yeah, if they have to go back to back for 3 midweeks in a row, it will really stretch their squad. And obviously injuries and things like that will come into it. So it's terrible timing, if I do say so myself, for Hertha. So yeah, watch this space closely. It could be a huge kind of story in the next few weeks, and obviously it could lead to a real shock in terms of a team potentially going down into the Zweite Bundesliga. So we'll have to keep an eye on it for sure.
Yeah, I can confirm as well that all Hertha Berlins until the 7th of May have been cancelled as things stand. So, I mean, it'll be almost a month until they played a football match if things continue, you know. Because obviously it came at the wrong time because it came on the Saturday morning, you know, so they'll have to miss, basically they're going to be missing 3-4 games, and it's a disaster for them, really. they are very worried. I know I read a couple of articles saying that they're extremely worried, and also looking at the fixtures, well, they've still got to play Mainz, Bielefeld, and Cologne, and Hoffenheim as well, who are only a little bit further above them. So, I mean, they've got. Do you know what I mean? You could look at it both ways. I mean, if they really get the grit between the teeth, they can probably put a few wins together there. But at the same time, if they lose a couple of those games, even the automatic relegation place is not out of the reaches now, you know. But and I mean, for Cologne, it's got to give them a bee in the bonnet and think, you know, Cologne, Hertha aren't going to be playing until the 7th of May. If we can get 4 points, then we can get out of that bottom two, even though Hertha will have games in hand. So, I mean, for me, it's a disaster. The timing is just absolutely disastrous for Hertha, really. They've had a poor season anyway. They were just starting to get a bit of form together, weren't they? They'd gone 3 unbeaten with 1 win and 2 draws. And now this comes. I mean, it's just, it's unfortunate. But, I mean, obviously here in Germany, they've already declared the 3rd wave is well underway now. So, I mean, things are not showing any signs of getting better over here in Germany. So, yeah, if you're listening in the UK, then you're lucky.
So it's obviously not a good time in Germany in general, or for Hertha Berlin, of course. So we'll quickly finish with the hero and zero, and then just finish with a few footnotes with regards to our plans for the coming week. So we'll just start off with our hero, and I think I'll let Mark introduce this one, and then I'll do the zero. So, Mark, do you want to announce your hero of the week?
Yeah, I mean, while obviously the obvious choice would have been Musiala for his big double in the game of the week, there was one guy who really stood out for me this weekend, and it's a player that I've been a fan of for quite a while, actually, and it was Christopher Trimmel from Union Berlin. I mean, the guy was just outstanding in this game. Like, if any of you want to watch the highlights of that, I'd recommend it. I mean, it was a perfect fullback performance, really. And he almost capped it with a goal near the end as well, but a brilliant save from the Stuttgart keeper prevented him from getting a goal to add to the 2 brilliant assists. So, yeah, just in general, he played with a mask on as well. So, I mean, obviously, like, not a kind of COVID mask, but like one of the structural masks. So, yeah, I mean, it was an outstanding performance and a well-deserved hero of the week for Christopher Trimmel from Union Berlin.
Yeah, good stuff. Quickly just going over the zero. It won't come as a shock to anyone that has gone to another keeper, an incredibly reliable keeper this season. So, unfortunately, we do have to put him in for his compounding errors, especially for the second goal for Cohen Casteels of Wolfsburg. His flap/punch for the second goal, obviously, which fell to Choupo-Moting, was a big moment in a big game. So that's obviously cost them potentially a point, which might come back to bite them later on in the season. So we'll have to see. But it has been incredibly good this season. A rare rarity in terms of the keepers this season as well. So unfortunately, Casteels is the zero of the week. So yeah, that pretty much brings us to a close. We haven't done too badly on time, actually, despite there being a lot to talk about this week. So looking ahead in terms of our plans for the next week, it's obviously very busy still. So there is a midweek batch of games of the Bundesliga. So match week or match day 30 will take place over Tuesday and Wednesday coming, and even Thursday actually potentially. Are there? Yes. Oh no, we've got one unscheduled game. So Tuesday and Wednesday. So myself and Mark won't be doing a predictions show for Matchday 30, but we are planning on doing a show live on Thursday, which will actually kind of be a usual Bundesliga show. So we'll try and capture what happens in the midweek games and do a bit of predictions show for Matchday 31. So there's plenty going on. Once we've got the details of when we'll be going live on Thursday, obviously we'll release it on Twitter and on YouTube, of course, so you guys can join us for a slightly elongated version on a Thursday night. So a bit of bonus material for you. As things hot up in the top 4 and top 6 and indeed the relegation races, we might have more news on the Super League and its potential impact on the Bundesliga as well by then. So lots to kind of investigate and lots to be seen in the coming weeks and days ahead. So hopefully we'll have you guys to join us as usual and join us on the Bundesliga show on Thursday as well. So over to Mark to finish up.
Yeah, so obviously remember to follow us on our Twitter feed, which is @OverTheBarFB. So you can see, obviously, the season is coming towards an end now. Obviously, going into the Euros as well. We're actually we have big plans for the Euros as well. So keep kind of checking that out. We will be announcing some of the plans that we have over the next month or two. Obviously, with the Euros starting in, I think it's the 20th of June, right? So yeah, that's the next big thing we have here. Obviously, that links it. We will be covering the German national team as well, of course, if any of you are interested in that. And yeah, obviously check out otbfootball.net, which is our main website for anything Bundesliga, League One, and just about everything else related. We also had a very interesting article on Andre Silva as well, obviously written before the 4-0 trashing against Gladbach. But yeah, he deserves recognition for this brilliant season, so check that out as well. So yeah, so that's all from a very, very interesting week of football, not only on the pitch, but probably even more so off the pitch this week, really. So yeah, see you again on Thursday for the live show.